Hi everyone, this is Eagle News. I'm Ralph Cornell in Washington. It's already the last Saturday of January 2024 here in the nation's capital. The week's recap begins with Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus being moved to tears as he speaks about the current humanitarian crisis in Gaza. This during a World Health Organization Executive Committee meeting in Geneva, Switzerland. Dr. Tedros had to pause for several seconds while addressing the committee about what's left of Gaza. The WHO chief chokes up as he tries to hold back tears.
Struggling to speak because the situation is beyond words. Thank you very much. I think if we look for a solution, it's always possible. It's only the will that's required.
Official Israeli figures report that around 1,140 people died during Hamas's militants' unprecedented attacks on Israel on October 7th last year. Gaza's Hamas-run health ministry, on the other hand, says that at least 25,700 people have been killed by Israel's military response. Most of the casualties are women and children. In a bid to end the Gaza conflict, international humanitarian and rights organizations call on countries to halt weapons transfers to Israel and Palestinian armed groups. This or risk being complicit in possible war crimes. Bruce Balmeo reports.
In a joint statement, 16 international humanitarian and rights groups urged United Nations member states to stop sending weapons, parts, and ammunitions to Israel and Palestinian armed groups. This, in a call to stop the Gaza crisis and avert further humanitarian catastrophe and loss of civilian life. The statement says Israel's bombardment and siege are depriving the civilian population of the basics to survive and rendering Gaza uninhabitable. It adds that the civilian population in Gaza faces a humanitarian crisis of unprecedented severity and scale. Around 1,140 people were killed in the Hamas attacks on southern Israel, and some 250 were taken hostage. 132 of the hostages are still being held. The number includes at least 28 hostages now known to be dead. In response, Israel has carried out a relentless offensive which, according to the health ministry in the Hamas-run territory, has killed at least 25,700 people in Gaza. The war has led to dire shortages of food, water, fuel, and medicines in the besieged territory. Bruce Balmeo, Eagle News. We live in extraordinary times.
A study published in the British Medical Journal suggests video gaming may be hazardous to your hearing. Scientists say gamers may be at risk of irreversible hearing loss and tinnitus, a persistent ringing or buzzing in the ears. Jeff Sanadad tells us more.
The study looked at more than 50,000 video gamers from 9 countries worldwide. It suggests gamers are exposed to sound levels near or exceeding safe limits. Researchers say gamers often play at high-intensity sound levels and for several hours at a time. Several other studies found gamers suffered hearing problems. The findings suggest a need to prioritize interventions. This includes initiatives focused on education and awareness of potential gaming risks. This to help promote safe listening among gamers. Jeff Sanidad, Washington, D.C., Eagle News. We live in extraordinary times.
Extraordinary stories from Thomas I Like This today. From gene therapy treating hearing loss to prison raids carried on in Ecuador. to a rare all-white penguin spotted in Antarctica. These and more on Correspondent at Large.
And now news and commentary from around the globe. Have you heard about the Doomsday Clock? It's a symbol that shows us just how close we are to destroying the world. Top scientists and security experts say it has ticked down to just 90 seconds before midnight. Now don't panic, it hasn't moved. That's where it had been at last year. Rachel Bronson, head of the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists, says conflicts around the world could start that clock ticking again, though.
The war in Ukraine poses an ever-present risk of nuclear escalation, and the October 7 attack in Israel and war in Gaza provides further illustration of the horrors of modern war, even without nuclear escalation.
And she mentioned some other things that may help us or hurt us.
Biological research aimed at preventing future pandemics has proven useful, but also presents the risk of causing one. And recent advances in artificial intelligence raise a variety of questions about how to control a technology that could improve or threaten civilization in countless ways.
Stories like this makes one think about where their hope comes from. News from the medical file gives hope to people who suffer from some forms of deafness. Doctors are using gene therapy to treat hearing loss caused by genetic disorders. For the first time in his life, 11-year-old Asam Dam is hearing sounds. 4 months ago, doctors at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia performed a surgical procedure that involved partly lifting his eardrum. They then injected a harmless virus which had been modified to transport working copies of a missing gene. Now, this gene allows the growth of hair cells in the inner ear that convert sound vibrations into chemical signals that are sent to the brain. Since the surgery, Asam now only has mild to moderate hearing loss. It's taken doctors and researchers more than 20 years to develop this procedure. We've told you stories on other Eagle newscasts about how inmates run the prisons in Ecuador and about how gang and cartel leaders conduct business outside prison walls while they are incarcerated. Over the past several weeks, the military has been conducting raids on the country's lockups. Last week, at one of Ecuador's dangerous prisons that gangs control, soldiers removed hundreds of meters of internet and satellite TV cables, about 1,500 meters worth. You see, that's how criminals have been able to continue to keep a violent grip on the country and run their operations on the outside. More raids are expected. And an animal story now. I want to show you some images of a rare penguin captured on video in the Antarctic. Now, penguins aren't an unusual sight on the ice-covered polar continent, but this one is. You see, it's an all-white Papua penguin. And he really stands out from his black and white cousins with their tuxedo-like appearance. A recessive gene causes the lack of color, and it affects about 1% of the population. And that makes these birds a little more visible to their predators. A member of the Chilean Navy shot this video. I'll be back in 7 days, and until then, I wish you all peace, joy, and happiness in the ensuing week. Thomas I. Likeness, Correspondent at Large, Eagle News. We live in extraordinary times.
More and more people are going to the emergency departments to get care and being diagnosed with the flu than COVID-19. This as seasonal flu activities increase across the country. Rosal Feria tells us more on Health is Wealth.
The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, or CDC, says since the fall, emergency department visits have been increasingly driven by flu. Although recent data suggests flu may have already peaked this season, the health agency is watching closely for a second wave of flu activity. The most commonly reported influenza viruses this season are type A, H1N1, and type B viruses. CDC says this might mean more severe outcomes among people who are hospitalized with flu this season. CDC finds that A and B viruses cause severe illness more frequently among hospitalized patients. This, compared to AH3N2 viruses, more severe illness could create higher demand for healthcare, potentially increasing strain on hospitals. As of January 6 this year, only 47% of the adult population has been vaccinated in the U.S. for the 2023-2024 season. CDC calls on families and individuals to get vaccinated to reduce the risk of getting sick and take illnesses from wild to mild. Rosel Feria, Washington, D.C. Eagle News. We live in extraordinary times.
Governor Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania signs legislation giving medically vulnerable infants in the state expanded access to potentially life-saving pasteurized donor human milk. Malasim Bulon has the story.
Owen's law increases access to pasteurized donor human milk. This by expanding the number of health conditions eligible for Medicaid-covered donor human milk. This law can help supplement a mother's milk and provide more options to support healthy growth for infants. Pasteurized donor human milk is evidence-based nutritional medicine essential to medically fragile infants' health. In many instances, it may be difficult for mothers with infants in neonatal intensive care units to provide enough breast milk. This despite strong effort and adequate lactation support. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention says breastfeeding is important for babies. Breastfed infants are proven to experience boosted immune systems, fewer ear, respiratory, and gastrointestinal infections, reduced risk of developing diabetes, obesity, asthma, and some cancers, and decreased risk of sudden unexplained infant death syndrome. In Swarthmore, Pennsylvania, Mila Simbulan, Eagle News. We live in extraordinary times.
Meanwhile, using enrichment of academic experience and avoidance of financial abuse as primary reasons, Canada will be issuing fewer international student permits to post-secondary undergraduate students. Yolanda Esperas joins us on Learning Curve.
The number of study permits for international students coming into Canada will be reduced temporarily, the Canadian federal government announced Monday. Last year, 560,000 student visas were issued in Canada. The new cap on student visas will result in 360,000 study permits to be approved this year, which will see a decrease of 35%. This limit will apply to post-secondary undergraduate students only. It will not include students in master's and doctorate degrees, high school and elementary levels. Current study permit holders will not be affected. So why cap the international student program? According to Immigration Minister Mark Miller, Canada needs to ensure that international students have an enriching academic experience and that they are not abused by a system that takes advantage by charging higher international student tuition fees while providing poor education. Some experts say that this temporary cap might also help with Canada's housing crisis, as there are more people competing for lower-cost rentals and some housing being turned into student rental homes. In 2023, there were about 900,000 foreign students in Canada, a number 3 times higher than a decade ago. Yolanda Aspiras, Toronto, Ontario, Eagle News. We live in extraordinary times.
Microsoft joins Apple as a $3 trillion company. This as its big bet on artificial intelligence continues to impress Wall Street. Irvin Arquiza on this week's Mind Your Business.
Microsoft shares are up 1.31% at $404. It is now second to Apple as the world's biggest company by market capitalization. Apple remains narrowly in first place at $3.02 trillion after reaching the $3 trillion market capitalization mark for the first time in January 2022. Apple, however, has fallen below the milestone. It even briefly lost the pole position as biggest company on the markets when Microsoft overtook the iPhone maker earlier this month. Microsoft, more than any other tech giant, rides the wave of excitement over AI. The Redmond, Washington-based group has a major partnership with OpenAI. OpenAI is the creator of ChatGPT, which is reportedly worth $13 billion. Since the arrival of ChatGPT, Microsoft has launched several products enabling companies and individuals to use the capabilities of generative AI. Among its most notable products is the Bing search engine and Copilot virtual assistant. Since the launch of ChatGPT in early November 2022, Microsoft shares have gained some 67%. Apple, on the other hand, is up by about 40%. Microsoft publishes its results on January 30th. Irvin Arquiza, Eagle News. We live in extraordinary times.
Fans of the literary work of J.R.R. Tolkien have a themed restaurant to sink their teeth into, the Hobbit Cafe in Houston, Texas. Bureau Chief Jane Kathleen Gregorio takes us on a tour of this iconic restaurant.
If you're looking for an otherworldly dining experience, you don't have to travel far to taste the flavors of Middle-earth. For more than 50 years, the Hobbit Cafe in Houston, Texas has brought together fans of J.R.R. Tolkien's Lord of the Rings series. But even if you're not a fan, there's something for everyone to enjoy. Not only delicious food, but also fellowship.
We were established in 1972. We used to be on Shepherd, and we moved to this location on Richmond in the year 2000, and we've been here ever since. But yeah, it's been around for a while. We started as one of the first vegetarian restaurants in Houston. Like you're in Middle-earth, you're here at the Shire, Hobbiton, so yeah, it's a good time for sure. It's very immersive.
This hidden gem, located on Richmond Avenue near downtown Houston, is chock full of Tolkien, film, and story memorabilia. The Hobbit Cafe also features live music, a pet-friendly open patio dining with tabletop fire pits, trivia and costume nights, and souvenirs for sale. And offers menu items named after Lord of the Rings characters and caters to all diets. Vegetarian options include the Gandalf avocado mushroom and melted jack sandwich, the Lonely Mountain black bean nachos, the Fellowship platter, and more. Carnivores can chow down on dragon wings, Gollum's fish tacos, Smog's smoked turkey sandwich, and hearty burgers like Aragorn's Angus avocado and the double patty Balrog burger. What's like your most outrageous menu item?
Probably our Morgoth burger. It's a quad patty burger. It's about this big.
Morgoth burger, which is a ginormous burger, and it's actually a challenge because if you can eat the whole thing, then you can win a t-shirt that is only available if you finish the burger. It's really cool. The other items on our menu that are really special, like the Dwalin, it's like a curry chicken salad with some grapes and stuff in it. It's really, really good. My favorite's actually the King Theoden. It's got like hummus on it. It's like Mediterranean themed.
Gregory Orr, a Houston native, is also a Tolkien fan, but had never been to the Hobbit Cafe prior.
My family moved to Texas in '74, so I'd always heard about it. It's just never made it over here. But yeah, it's been something that people have talked about and come to for a long time. Late '70s, there was a real big push for Lord of the Rings for some reason during that time period. I read the books. I was a big kind of a science fiction and I say fantasy geek because fantasy wasn't really a big thing at the time. It was all science fiction. But this kind of came out and we all read it and was very excited about it.
We both decided to try the King Theoden burger, topped with hummus and olives. The burger itself was juicy and had a flavorful Mediterranean taste to it.
This is a King Theoden's burger, and it's got mushrooms and peppers, olives. I think even hummus is in there, so some cheese. It's really good.
Gregory went for the seasoned Uruk fries, smothered in hatch chili queso.
Oh yeah, good.
I decided to order the onion rings, which had a crispy seasoned batter that I found to be precious.
Sausage, I guess.
So this is the one onion ring. To bite them all.
Yeah, I don't know why I never came here before. I've lived here since this place was open almost, and I forgot it existed.
With so many different menu items to choose from, this epic meal will definitely need a sequel.
Oh, it's delicious. I'll come back again and try some more items.
In Houston, Texas, I'm Jane Kathleen Gregorio, Eagle News. We live in extraordinary times.
Now, before we let you go, let us share with you our photo of the week. This is the Capitol building in Washington, blanketed with fog during a warm winter night. Thank you, Abigail Figueroa, for this photo. Thank you all for joining us again. If there are any stories or topics you want us to share with you, just comment below. Follow us on YouTube, Facebook, and X at Eagle News Live. I'm Ralph Cornell. We live in extraordinary times. Stay happy and healthy, everyone.